In the US, whenever I moved, I would drive to the next place, and I kept doing like coast to coast, so I would do this like 10-day like road trip. Yeah, but I remember like I left Seattle and I was just like hysterically crying for like half of the country. So I was like driving across the country because I was like, no, Seattle. Yeah, but what was I like? What was my actual personality? It depends on how high childhood goes. Let's see, when I was younger, I did run away to Paris once with one of my ex-boyfriends, but I was in college, so I don't know if that counts. I had gone on semester at sea as a student, and I like came back and was one of those annoying people that comes back from study abroad, and I was like, oh, but Europe is just so much better than the United States. And then I had this like ex-boyfriend, and I was like, oh, I want to like go back to Paris, and he was like, I'll pay for the hotel if you like buy your own plane ticket or something. And I was like, okay. And then I didn't tell anyone that I went, and then there was like some really severe weather where I was living, and then my mom was trying to get a hold of me, and then she couldn't, so she eventually found out. So I guess I was a bit rebellious. So I went to grad school in Seattle. I was there for 2 years. It was the first place I felt like that actually had like a physical impact on me, and that like I saw a lot of men there with like long hair and lots of tattoos, and I hadn't been used to that. I went to college in Southern California, and that's not really like the general aesthetic there. But in Seattle, I felt like there was much more liberty, yeah, in terms of like gender expression, like queerness, and the school I went to was like right next to the gay district, and I lived on campus, and so I just like loved it. So it was just like in the center of like queer life all the time. I have moved constantly, so I am definitely not someone who thinks of home as like where I'm born or where my family is. I always think as long as I feel comfortable and I have people that I enjoy spending time with, then I feel like that's home to me. I think the times when Singapore felt less like home was like when I first got here, and I like didn't know anyone, and I was like trying to adjust to the work culture, which is a bit intense in Singapore, and trying to adjust to like the culture shock and the heat and the everything else, that I was like, this doesn't feel like home. Whereas now it's not like that. Now we're like, we have a lot of friends off campus that we really like spending time with. We host dinner parties, like, so I think that those types of experiences is what allows me to feel home. I try to get tattoos that are connected in some way to like an experience that I've had and that represents that experience. But I think a couple tattoos that I would highlight, so one would be this one here, which is one of the Nazca lines in Peru. And I had spent a summer in grad school doing an internship in Peru, so the one summer that I had, it was definitely the first time working in another country. Like that was the first time I had really been so far outside of my comfort zone that it was like I literally don't know how to go to the grocery store, or like going to the grocery store is a nightmare because I don't know what the signs are, so I don't even know what I'm buying. You know, strange fruit, like what even is this? So I like didn't know how to do anything, and then at the checkout counter they're asking me questions in Spanish, and I'm like, or I would just say like, I would say, forget exactly what it is in Spanish, estoy perdido or something. It's like I'm confused or I'm lost. It's like what I was saying like all the time. It's like I'm lost. Anyway, so long story short, I made it and it worked out. So I wanted this tattoo. I wanted a tattoo connected to Peru, of being able to be by myself in that kind of environment, but also just really like challenging myself to grow as a person. But also it really challenged me to grow a lot more in my empathy for other people, because I was like, oh, this is what it's like when people move to a country that they're unsure of, and when they're not sure what the language is. And like I have a lot more empathy now for people who move to the US and experience that for like years on end, and I only experienced it for 2 months, and I was like, oh, I understand better now why people get exhausted when they're home at the end of the day, literally from just thinking in 2 different languages all day. It's like physically tiring, and I like had no concept that that was a thing until I went there and experienced that.